The daughter of my father's mistress used my name to climb into the prince's bed. The empress wanted to have her beaten to death, but she claimed I had sent her to test the prince's sincerity. My maternal grandfather's family holds command over 500,000 troops and dotes on me immensely. The empress dared not offend me, so she forced the mistress's daughter to marry a rough man and leave the capital. The crown prince also repeatedly claimed that he had never touched the mistress and only wished to marry me into the Eastern Palace as soon as possible. Later, the mistress was caught in an affair with another man by her husband and was beaten to death. The crown prince, shedding his gentle and considerate demeanor, pressed a knife to my neck and said with hatred, "If it weren't for your insistence on marrying me, how could Qingqing have left me? She died, you'll be buried with her." He used a knife, personally turned me into a human pig, and laughed as he tortured me to death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my sister climbed into bed. "Your Highness, I truly didn't want to seduce the crown prince myself. It was my sister who sent me. She said she wanted to test the crown prince to see if he was someone worthy of entrusting her life to, which is why she sent me here. If it weren't for my sister sending me, even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't dare." Liu Qingqing had a face as devastatingly beautiful as her mother's, kneeling on the ground. Her cries were pitiful and sorrowful, her appearance utterly wretched. The empress glanced at me without a trace of emotion. "You're lying, the daughter of the prime minister. How could she be so jealous as to test the crown prince before marriage? Do you think this palace is so easily deceived by you?" The incident happened again, and Liu Qingqing's defense was exactly the same as in her previous life. Sister has been adored by everyone since she was a child. She always said that the man she marries, even if he isn't the best man in the world, must be devoted to her, one heart and one soul, for a lifetime. Even now, even though she has been betrothed to the crown prince, she doesn't want the crown prince to take concubines, so she resorted to this measure to test the crown prince's character. Sister is the legitimate daughter, while I am merely born of a concubine, with a lowly and humble status. How dare I disobey sister's commands? The empress's gaze rested on my face. "Miss Liu, is what she said true?" "Of course not." What Liu Qingqing said seemed to be praising my quality of loyalty and chastity, but in reality, she aimed to solidify the reputation of me being spoiled and jealous. Her seduction of the crown prince was nothing more than an attempt to secure a promising future for herself. It should be known that as the man most likely to ascend the throne in the kingdom of Qian, any woman who has been with him could become a concubine in the future. And if she bore a child, she might even become an empress dowager. Understanding her intentions was not difficult. It's laughable that in my previous life, I only thought she had gone astray, and for a moment, I softened. In front of the empress, I admitted that everything was my doing, just to spare her life. But recalling my final tragic end, my heart can no longer be stirred by her innocent appearance. I stood up and bowed, saying indifferently, "Your Majesty the Empress, this was naturally not something I instigated." Before the emperor bestowed the marriage between me and the crown prince, I already knew that there were several concubines in the crown prince's residence. If I had sought a lifelong union with just one person, I would not have agreed to this marriage. But it seems my sister is deeply infatuated with the crown prince, willing to ruin her own reputation just to attend upon the prince. Today, I beseech your highness on behalf of my sister, to allow her to enter the Eastern Palace. I am aware that her status makes it impossible for her to become the main wife, but even as a concubine or a maidservant in the inner chambers, please fulfill my sister's heartfelt wish. Liu Qingqing looked at me in disbelief. She couldn't understand why I would voluntarily plead on her behalf. But this outcome was indeed very good, not to mention being a chambermaid. Even if he were to become a cleaning girl in the Eastern Palace, he wouldn't be qualified for that status. Of course, the excited ones weren't just Liu Qingqing, there was also the prince who had been silent all along. He was tense all over, and when he spoke, he couldn't hide the urgency in his words. "Mother, I believe that although the third young lady of the Liu family was born out of wedlock, her speech and demeanor are no different from those of the other young ladies in the household. Such a dignified person doing all this must have her reasons." I was also muddle-headed, unable to control myself. for a moment, and ruined her innocence, I should take responsibility. Since Shusha is so magnanimous and has taken the initiative to plead for her sister, why not? The Empress glared at him, then looked at me with a kind expression. Miss Liu, as a woman myself, I naturally understand how repulsive this matter is to you. If you are merely speaking in anger, I will dismiss this impudent maidservant for you. Liu Qingqing, unable to defend herself against seducing the crown prince, was not instigated by me. As the daughter of a noble family, the Empress naturally despises such low and dirty tactics, but I stood firm against the objections of others. Your Highness, I don't mind. My sister is deeply in love with the crown prince. As her elder sister, it is only right for me to care for her. The crown prince and she are deeply attached to each other, and I truly cannot bear to be the one to break them apart. Therefore, it is better for the crown prince to welcome my sister into the Eastern Palace. The crown prince frowned, possibly sensing the hidden meaning in my words, feeling as if he were being treated like unwanted trash, pushed aside, but being able to be with Liu Qingqing openly, he swallowed his anger and smiled, praising me. You are truly considerate, Shusha. I am incredibly fortunate to have a wife like you. Don't worry, I will welcome you into the Eastern Palace ahead of time, and then bring your sister in later. The corner of my mouth lifted. Your Highness, you have misunderstood. My family has a tradition that men cannot marry their own sisters, and these sisters cannot share the same husband. His Highness has already promised to bring my sister into the Eastern Palace, and I am willing to step aside. As soon as these words were spoken, the three of them froze in place. After a long silence, even the usually composed and dignified Empress almost lost her balance, nearly dropping the pearl hairpin on her head. What, Miss Liu, what do you mean by this? Are you seeking to annul the engagement? I nodded. Your Highness, I can see that the crown prince's heart is not with me, but seems to be more deeply attached to my younger sister. I do not wish to harm my sister or the crown prince, and naturally, I dare not go against the ancestral teachings. With that, I turned to look at the crown prince and offered a smile. Your Highness, please rest assured, I will personally meet with the Emperor and explain the reasons behind this matter. Although it is against the imperial decree, it will absolutely not implicate your Highness. The joy that had just blossomed on the crown prince's face shattered completely. He quickly reached out to pull at my sleeve. Shusha, are you blaming me? It's because I failed to grasp the opportunity. I promise I will not let it happen again in the future. If you break off the engagement for this, it will not be good for your daughter's reputation when it spreads. How about this? I won't take your sister, as long as you become the crown princess. What do you say? Seeing the deep affection almost spilling from his eyes, I only feel like vomiting. In my previous life, because I admitted to instructing Liu Qingqing, the Empress spared her life but still sent her away, marrying her off to a rising young general, far from the capital. Unexpectedly, she had no sense of shame and engaged in an illicit affair in the military camp, where she was discovered by the young general and beaten to death, and this crown prince, who before the wedding had vowed, I will not make mistakes again. I will dismiss all concubines once you enter the residence. I will atone for my sins with the rest of my life, endured for 5 years, only to strike after my maternal family had secured his ascension to the throne, exterminating my maternal family and torturing me to death. I clearly remember that I had already been turned into a human torch, and although I could not speak or see, his cold and malicious voice pierced my heart with every word. You were merely a stepping stone for my ascension to the throne. Why couldn't you understand your place? Why were you so cruel as to force the Empress to marry Qingqing to that brute? If it weren't for you, how could Qingqing have died so tragically? I should have been loving and harmonious with her. With children and grandchildren all around, I will never see Qingqing again, so you should atone for your sins with death. My thoughts returned to the present, seeing the crown prince's mouth move as if about to utter that ridiculous promise again. I quickly kneel on the ground. Your Highness, if I were to marry into the Eastern Palace as the crown princess, it would violate the ancestral teachings. In that case, I would be unworthy of the position and unfit to be a virtuous consort. The crown prince is the heir apparent. How can his household be managed by someone who is neither loyal nor filial? Your Highness, please think twice before acting. My stance is already quite clear. The Empress still wanted to persuade me further, but I had already stood up and walked away without looking back. Rest assured, Your Highness, I will take full responsibility for this matter alone. I will go to the palace now to see the Emperor. The thought that, after today, I would never again endure the suffering of my past life made the sky seem even bluer than usual. Before long, I arrived at the palace. Upon hearing that I intended to annul the marriage, the Emperor's slightly raised corners of his mouth instantly fell. Do you know that I am the Son of Heaven? Once a word is spoken, it cannot be taken back. Your marriage was bestowed by me. If you annul it, you will be defying the imperial decree. I had anticipated this situation after all. The Emperor granted this marriage because of the influence of my maternal family. Since the Crown Prince was personally chosen by the Emperor as his successor, he must have been prepared to hand over the empire to him as the most powerful military family in the state of Qian. The Emperor naturally wanted to bring their influence under the Crown Prince's command, and so, I became the most suitable pivot. Now that I want to annul the engagement, it's not just me, a mere woman, leaving the Eastern Palace, but also the 500,000 military forces under my grandfather's control. I knelt on the ground, pinched myself, and squeezed out a few tears. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince and my sister are deeply in love. I truly dare not defy our ancestral teachings. In the Emperor's questioning gaze, I recounted everything that happened today in detail. The Emperor was furious. This rebellious son, with the wedding so close, how dare he act so recklessly? Crown Princess, rest assured, I will naturally stand by you. Although it seemed the Emperor had scolded the Crown Prince thoroughly, he still refused to annul the marriage for me. It's all right, I naturally have a way. Your Majesty, I am determined to leave and am willing to bear all the consequences of defying the imperial decree, but this matter concerns my lifelong happiness, and I hope Your Majesty will grant me the opportunity to make my own choice. Although the Emperor is the supreme ruler, when it comes to marriage, there has never been a principle of forcing someone to drink water if they are unwilling. Over the years, the Emperor has been diligent and conscientious, preserving his good reputation for benevolence and wisdom. If he were to force me into marriage with the Crown Prince, his hard-earned reputation would collapse overnight. Moreover, I have my maternal grandfather to back me up. My maternal grandparents' family had only my mother, their only daughter. Since her passing, my grandfather has cherished me like a precious gem, a fact known to everyone in the capital. After careful consideration and weighing the pros and cons, a flicker of reluctance flashed in the Emperor's eyes. Yes, it is indeed the Crown Prince who was at fault. If you insist on breaking off the engagement, I can do nothing about it. Let's do this. After all, marriage is no trivial matter. You are angry now, and I fear you may regret it in the future. I will give you 3 more days to think it over slowly. After saying this, the Emperor claimed to be busy with state affairs and suffering from an old ailment, and had several eunuchs escort me out of the palace. The palace affair had concluded, and a fine drama was now unfolding at home. By the decree of Her Majesty the Empress, the third daughter of the Liu family, Liu Qingqing, is of wanton nature. Having incited the Crown Prince and tarnished the dignity of the royal family, she is to receive 50 slaps to the face. Liu Qingqing, clad only in a thin undergarment, knelt alone and helpless in the courtyard, her eyes brimming with tears as she stared fearfully at the eunuch delivering the decree. Esteemed eunuch, after 50 slaps, even if I survive, my face will be ruined. I beg for your mercy. Please allow me to see the Crown Prince and plead with Her Majesty for leniency. The eunuch looked at her with disgust, then plastered a smile on his face as he turned to me. Miss Liu, Her Majesty knows that you must be very angry today because of this lowly servant, so she ordered us to have her brought back from the Eastern Palace in just her undergarments. We waited until you returned to your residence before carrying out the punishment. Please take a good look, and if it helps to ease your anger, we can report back to Her Majesty with peace of mind. I understood the Empress's intentions clearly, but what she didn't know was that I had lost all interest in the Crown Prince. Even if I never marry for my entire life, I could never marry him again. Speaking of which, I should thank Liu Qingqing. If it weren't for her giving me this opportunity, I really wouldn't have a good excuse to break off the engagement, but since the Empress wants to elevate me, I can't be ungrateful, I said calmly. Eunuch, since it's Her Majesty's decree, please proceed. Thank you for your trouble. The eunuch smiled and nodded, rolling up his sleeves as he prepared to give Liu Qingqing a harsh beating. At that moment, a voice rang out. Wait, it was my father who couldn't stand it anymore. He smiled, stepping closer to the eunuch, subtly slipping some silver into his hand. Esteemed eunuch, you are a prominent figure in the palace, delicate and precious. There's no need for you to trouble yourself with such rough work. Let the servants in our household handle it. The eunuch pushed him away directly, maintaining an official demeanor. Well, Minister Liu, what do you take our household for? I am the Empress's person. This servant dares to say something that perhaps shouldn't be said. Since she's the daughter of an outside mistress, she should be kept at a distance. How could she be allowed to go to the Eastern Palace to seduce the Crown Prince? Now, your legitimate daughter is angry and has gone to the palace to ask the Emperor to annul the marriage. This marriage alliance has been ruined by that wretched slave, and Her Majesty is furious. My father showed not the slightest surprise. He awkwardly laughed as he pocketed the silver. Yes, Your Excellency, it's me who doesn't understand. Several eunuchs delivered a flurry of slaps to Liu Qingqing's face. The Empress Dowager also said that every slap you receive, you must kowtow to express your gratitude for the Emperor's magnanimity. After these 50 slaps, you must also kneel at the entrance of the Liu mansion. Only when your elder sister forgives you will you be allowed to rise. Liu Qingqing cried as she endured the beating, with screams and cries of gratitude rising and falling in succession. After dozens of crisp and clear slaps, with her face swollen like a pig's head, she knelt obediently at the entrance of the mansion. The eunuchs, having carried out the imperial decree, returned to the palace in the dead of night. My father urgently summoned me to the main hall. Shusha, your sister has wronged you, but Her Majesty the Empress has already ordered her to be slapped. She was already frail to begin with, and now with the cold weather outside, if she continues kneeling and ends up with lasting health issues, how could you possibly feel at ease? I laughed. When she climbed into the Eastern Palace to seduce the Crown Prince, how did she feel at ease then? Father, if you care for her so much, why not join her in receiving the punishment? It's not my fault that I'm so disobedient to my father. I will never forget how, the day after my mother's death, he brazenly brought Liu Qingqing and the concubine Lin into the house. Not a trace of sadness was shown. Instead, he indulged in nightly revelry with the concubine, enjoying himself until dawn. Over the years, his partiality has been obvious. If it weren't for my maternal grandfather often taking care of me and my status being what it is, I'm afraid my father would have already been swayed by the concubine Lin's whispers, leaving me with nothing but bones. Although Liu Qingqing was pampered by him, she wouldn't be bold enough to dare seduce the Crown Prince. Perhaps this was also a bad idea my father and Lin Shi came up with for her. Since my father can ignore my feelings and still fulfill Liu Qingqing's desires, why should I care about them? The coldness and distance in my words are merely a reflection of how my father treats me, reciprocated in kind, and he actually got angry. What do you mean by that? Are you asking your own father to kneel in punishment? Back then, your mother relied on her status, being fierce and jealous, and now, she has given birth to a daughter like you. No matter what, Qingqing is your own sister. How can you be so heartless? I let out a scornful laugh. Isn't father deeply attached to her as a daughter? If even he cannot demand it of himself, how can he demand it of me? When has my mother ever been jealous? You want to bring that courtesan Lin into the house, ruining your own reputation, and because she doesn't allow it, she's jealous. Now you've gotten your wish, haven't you? The officials of the court all know that in the Liu household's inner courtyard, a courtesan is calling the shots. My father's eyes suddenly widened, and his raised hand swung fiercely toward me. I sidestepped to avoid it, coldly staring at him. Don't you forget, when my mother married you, you were just a 7th-rank official. It was my mother who schemed and maneuvered for you all these years, and it was my grandfather who bribed officials for you everywhere. That's how you got to where you are today. What right do you have to hit me? My father was furious and wanted to hit me again. The few guards my mother left for me dragged him out bodily. You, Liu Ningxia, how can you be so unfilial? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning 5 times? Struck by lightning 5 times, that's better than being turned into a human pig and tortured to death. This night is destined to be anything but peaceful. The sky was not yet fully light when a mournful wail echoed from outside. Young mistress, it's my fault. I shouldn't have harbored feelings for the master back then, shouldn't have risked my life to give birth to his child. But please, for the sake of Qingqing being your sister, just let her stand up. She fainted 3 times last night. The doctor said her body is too weak, and if she keeps kneeling, she might die. Young mistress, if my daughter dies, I'll smash my head against a wall and follow her. I know you dislike us the most, so today we'll fulfill your wish. In this lifetime, aside from firmly capturing my father's heart, Lin's only exceptional skill is her ability to feign misery. Over the years, by shedding tears, she has gained many advantages from my father. I am naturally indifferent and unwilling to compete with those who are beneath me. They are aware of my temperament, so they rarely provoke me on their own now. With Liu Qingqing nearly dried out outside, she has no choice but to come to me. I opened the door and saw her wearing thin clothes, crying her heart out. My father stood beside her, his eyes filled with heartache. What a tragic and moving performance, but I only felt disgust. If you want to crash, hurry up and do it. Go outside and crash. This is my courtyard, don't dirty it. Madam Lin knelt on the ground, reaching for my pant leg. Miss, I know you are stubborn, and it was Qingqing's fault first, but please forgive her. She is young and has a bright future ahead. I am old now, and being with master is like a dream. It's worth it all. Can I die in her place? My father couldn't bear to listen anymore and coldly glared at me. Liu Ningxia, do you really have to be so heartless? What good does it do you to drive the mother and daughter to their deaths? Now, forcing them to their deaths would bring no benefit after all. I still need to use this to completely break off the marriage. Alright, Madam Lin, hurry and help Liu Qingqing up. If she dies, I will truly feel guilty for the rest of my life. Father, quickly call for a few good doctors. We must not let my sister die. The two were overjoyed and quickly went to the mansion entrance to help Liu Qingqing inside. As for me, I remained outside the palace, waiting only for the palace gates to open. Crown Princess, you've come so early. Have you come to your senses? Although my son was foolish, he has already expressed his true feelings to me last night. From beginning to end, his heart has only been with you. He was completely bewitched by that Liu Qingqing. The emperor looked at me with a smile, but I instantly burst into tears. Your Majesty, I truly dare not aspire to the position of Crown Princess anymore. I humbly thank Her Majesty the Empress for sending the palace official yesterday to stand up for me. But it angered my father and his mistress so much that they threatened me with life and death, forcing me to step down and make way for someone more worthy. My sister, for His Highness, even wore thin clothes and endured the cold wind late into the night, and now she has fainted. If her life is lost, my reputation will be ruined. The emperor's smile instantly froze. He glanced at the eunuch beside him, who understood and hurried out the door. This, Prime Minister Liu shouldn't be so thoughtless. Should he? Yes, my father shouldn't be so thoughtless. One is the legitimate daughter, the granddaughter of a powerful minister who holds military authority, while the other is a daughter born to a prostitute, barely deserving the title of concubine's daughter. Who is more important, who is less, even a fool could tell. But my father, well, he's truly a fool. From the moment he met Lady Lin, his mind was sealed, whether it's family honor or entangled interests. As long as they're mixed with Lady Lin's tears, he will step forward, transforming into a mountain standing before her. Unfortunately, this mountain is merely a mountain in front of the Lin family in my eyes, and in the emperor's eyes, it is fragile enough to crumble with a push. The emperor comforted me while waiting for the eunuch's reply. Soon, the eunuchs returned, whispering something to the emperor. The emperor instantly slammed the table in anger. This Prime Minister Liu and that vile woman actually dare to be so bold. Truly outrageous. I wiped away my tears. Please grant this subject's honor, Your Majesty. Let us annul the engagement, even if it costs this subject's life. I dare not lose this honor. The emperor's face was grim for a long time before he gritted his teeth. Yes, if that is the case, I no longer have any reason to force you. This marriage is hereby annulled. After saying this, he managed to force a grim smile. I will not blame you. You can return in peace. At the palace gate, I saw the crown prince. His face was filled with despair as he walked over to block my way. Shusha, after all these years together, can you really be so heartless? Looking at him, I couldn't even be bothered to maintain a smile. Your Highness, it seems you don't care about our years of affection either. Otherwise, you and my sister wouldn't have been dragged out from that bed. Having exposed his hypocrisy with my words, his expression turned cold. Fine, since you said it yourself, you don't want to be the crown princess. There are plenty of others who do. Liu Ningxia, you'd better not regret this. With that, he stormed off angrily. Have you heard? The eldest daughter of the Liu family broke off her engagement with the crown prince. It was the eldest daughter herself who went before the emperor to request it. Who doesn't know that? Didn't you see how Liu Qingqing knelt outside the Liu residence for half the night? That's the punishment from the emperor and empress, who told her, a daughter of a courtesan, not to know her place and dare to ruin the engagement between her elder sister and the crown prince. The eldest daughter of the Liu family has rejected the crown prince. And the crown prince has already taken Liu Qingqing's innocence. Shouldn't he at least bring her into the Eastern Palace? Otherwise, wouldn't her life be completely ruined? They say dragons beget dragons, and phoenixes beget phoenixes. The daughter of a prostitute, wasn't she born for this? What reputation or chastity? She doesn't even care about such things. Speaking of Prime Minister Liu, he really is a fool. If his legitimate daughter had married the crown prince, he would have become the emperor's father-in-law in the future. Yet, he indulged and favored his mistress. Now, it's all for nothing, like drawing water with a bamboo basket. At least it gives us something to laugh about after tea and dinner. The entire Liu household, along with Madame Liu and her daughter, has become the laughingstock of the capital's citizens due to the broken engagement. The emperor was also enraged and issued an edict demoting my father by 2 ranks upon receiving the imperial decree. He was struck as if by a bolt from the blue, standing rooted to the spot, unable to regain his senses for a long time. When he finally came to his senses, he blamed it all on me. Your sister merely admires the crown prince. Why are you being so ruthless? First, you break off the engagement. Then you go to the emperor to lodge a complaint, even disregarding your father's career. Seeing his furious expression, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Father, I don't know what you're so angry about. Since my sister admires the crown prince, isn't breaking off the engagement my way of helping them be together? That night, it was you and Lin who came to my courtyard to cry and beg, which is why I went to the palace to plead with the emperor to lift the punishment and save Liu Qingqing's life. Isn't this outcome exactly what you've been yearning for? What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with? My father looked as if he had a lump stuck in his throat, gritting his teeth. You wicked girl, you wait. To be frank, given my father's talents and abilities, even the position of a 7th-rank official on that day seemed somewhat beneath him. I might wait until the next life, and I still might not get anything, so I kindly reminded them. Wait for what, father? Are you still dreaming of Liu Qingqing entering the East Palace as a concubine, just waiting for the day when the crown prince ascends the throne? She becomes a favored consort, and seeks revenge on me. If that's your plan, you're sorely mistaken. The emperor and empress will never agree to it. Sure enough, my father and Madame Lin both lit up with excitement. I could even sense that Liu Qingqing, who had been bedridden, sat up in a flash. You are simply corrupted by your mother's teachings. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Get back to your courtyard. I left, but the 3 of them were completely thrilled. Yes, in their perception, I cannot marry into the East Palace, but Liu Qingqing can, although not a crown princess. Once the crown prince ascends the throne, with Liu Qingqing's efforts, becoming a favored concubine should be possible. Right at that time, wouldn't they also be the father of the emperor's in-laws all these years? My father has lived under the shadow of my grandfather's authority, probably dreaming of escaping his influence. If he were to become the emperor's father-in-law, He could finally see the light. They will definitely send Liu Qingqing to the Crown Prince's residence, but at this critical moment, the Emperor and Empress are already disgusted with Liu Qingqing. How could they agree to let her enter the Crown Prince's residence? That night, I saw Liu Qingqing heading towards the Crown Prince's residence. I also don't know how the Crown Prince managed to persuade the Emperor and Empress, but he successfully obtained Liu Qingqing. However, the Emperor and Empress decreed that Liu Qingqing would receive no title or status. Even if she entered the Eastern Palace, her position would be lower than that of a maid. But this is also good. It doesn't disappoint her mother, as she is following in her mother's footsteps. Before going to the Eastern Palace, Liu Qingqing begged Lady Lin to give her a substantial dowry. I ordered someone to bring back all those precious treasures, and Lin's fury was evident. What are you doing? These are my daughter's dowry. What right do you have to take them away? I sneered. These are clearly my mother's dowry. You, a mistress who can't even show your face in public. When did you ever have the right to touch my mother's things? Indeed, coming from a brothel, no one ever taught you proper manners. All you know are those cheap tricks to please men. She glared at me fiercely. Liu Qingqing, who had rushed over in a hurry, now also changed her usual humble and flattering demeanor, shouting at me, Liu Ningxia, you've had your way for so many years. I'm about to get married now. Why won't you let me go? Let you go? I laughed as if hearing the biggest joke. These years, you and your mother have taken advantage of my father's blindness to bully those lesser sons and daughters, haven't you? In the back courtyard of the Liu residence, you've lived in splendor. How could I possibly bully you, now that you're getting married? Why are you touching my mother's dowry? Did your mother not save enough for your dowry when she sold herself? My words were harsh, and my father couldn't bear to listen anymore, so he even cursed at me with some coarse language. This emboldened Mrs. Lin and her daughter, Liu Qingqing, became outright smug. Let me tell you, don't think you're so great just because you're the legitimate daughter. Once I'm in the Eastern Palace, with the Crown Prince's affection for me, becoming a noble consort will be a breeze. By then, I'll trample you underfoot and make you apologize for what you've done today. I smirked at the corner of my mouth. I certainly hope so. On the day Liu Qingqing went to the Eastern Palace, the Crown Prince actually came to greet her in person. As the two of them passed by me, I saw the identical provocative looks in their eyes. Liu Ningxia, don't think that I can't manage without you. I want you to witness with your own eyes how I ascend to the throne. By then, even if you regret it, it will be too late. I watched them leave, sighing at their foolishness. He is indeed the legitimate prince and favored by the emperor, but that doesn't guarantee he will ascend the throne in the future. Over the next few months, Liu Qingqing truly enjoyed the Crown Prince's favor. While the emperor was critically ill, the Crown Prince was imprisoned in the imperial clan court for poisoning the emperor's medicinal soup. The evidence was conclusive, and even the empress could not rescue the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince was imprisoned for over 10 days before the emperor regained consciousness and released him. He cried out his innocence in the emperor's bedchamber. The emperor, seeing his emaciated frame and the stubble on his face, naturally did not want to believe it. Unfortunately, the evidence was conclusive. Poison was found in his residence, and several servants came forward to confess that the Crown Prince had instructed them to administer it. The emperor, with no other choice, had to strip him of his title as Crown Prince. He had been cooped up in his residence for several months, doing nothing but proclaiming his innocence and drowning his sorrows in drink. No one knows better than I do that he was truly wronged, because this very incident had occurred once before in my previous life. The fourth prince had always been eyeing the throne, just waiting for a good opportunity to kick the Crown Prince down. The emperor's illness presents an opportunity. In my previous life, by this time, I had already married the Crown Prince. I managed his household and naturally noticed the strange behavior of those servants. It took great effort to uncover the truth. I used their own plan against them, catching the fourth prince off guard and reducing him to a commoner, thus eliminating a formidable rival for the Crown Prince. This time, without my intervention, the Crown Prince, preoccupied with romantic pursuits with Liu Qingqing, remained completely unaware. He fell for the trap as expected in my previous life. Fearing that the emperor's worsening illness would cause further trouble, I went to the palace to attend to him. I took care of everything personally and finally nursed the emperor back to health. This time, the palace seems in chaos, and the emperor's condition not only hasn't improved but has worsened. At first, he could still wear clothes and review memorials, but later, he could only listen to reports from his bed, and now, I hear he needs to sleep at least 10 hours a day, and when he wakes up, he's always in a daze, unable to hear clearly what others are saying. The crown prince, or rather, Huang Fuju, has already been deposed. Most of the power in the palace is now controlled by the fourth prince and his birth mother, Consort Li. By the time the empress was sidelined, it was already too late. The emperor has passed away. The fourth prince produced a decree of succession, claiming that the late emperor had appointed him as the new ruler. Although there were many doubts in the court, he had been meticulously planning for years. Without complete certainty, he naturally would not have dared to ascend the throne. One after another, many officials loyal to the crown prince were assassinated, and soon, there was no more opposition in the court. Even the empress, who had been imprisoned in the palace for a long time, dared not utter a word. In just a month, the fourth prince solidified his position on the throne. After ascending the throne, his first imperial edict was to strip Huang Fuju of his noble status, forcing his entire family to leave the capital and exile them to Lingnan. Huang Fuju naturally refused to comply. That night, he knelt before me, crying hysterically, "Shusha, I was wrong. I should never, ever have let that wretch into my bed. I beg you, forgive me. As long as you are willing to have your grandfather send troops to help me ascend the throne, I promise, you will definitely be the empress in the future. I will grant your entire family glory. Please, save me. I am the crown prince. How could I be exiled to Lingnan?" I looked at him and smiled coldly. "Did you know, I actually, really seriously helped you. Unfortunately, after I helped you ascend the throne, you slaughtered my maternal grandfather's entire family and turned me into a human swine. On your way to Lingnan, you must be careful. Don't let anyone capture you. Cut off your ears, and gouge out your eyes. A human swine made from the crown prince would surely be a unique and rare treasure in this world." He looked at me in horror, wanting to say something more, but I kicked him away. "Take your Liu Qingqing and leave quickly. Oh, by the way, you should be careful. If the crown prince's head ends up wearing a green hat someday, it wouldn't look good." Huang Fuju was exiled to Lingnan. Everyone knows he is the political enemy of the new emperor. Since the winner takes all and the loser is left with nothing, he can no longer be treated as a member of the royal family. To curry favor with the new emperor, he will undoubtedly face no shortage of torment along the way. Just 5 days before his exile, all those associated with the crown prince were also convicted and imprisoned. My father and Lin Shu, as the parents of Huang Fuju's favored concubine, naturally could not escape punishment. The new emperor acted decisively, ordering Lin Shu's execution and demoting my father to a barren land to serve as an official. As he left, he wept bitterly over Lin Shu, his eyes red, yet still pleaded desperately with me. "Shusha, since your grandfather was able to protect you from the emperor, he can definitely protect me too. Please, beg your grandfather to let me stay in the capital. I've heard that in that place, you can't even find a single drop of drinkable water. The journey there is through scorching deserts, and at my age, I'm afraid I'll die halfway. After all, I am your own father." I sneered mockingly. "Now you remember you're my biological father. Before, it seemed you only considered yourself Liu Qingqing's father. Isn't your daughter going to become a royal consort in the palace in the future? Why don't you go ask her to save you?" He looked at me pleadingly, then was dragged away in despair by several officers. After my grandfather learned about the changes in my life over a period of time, with my consent, he transferred me from the Liu family genealogy to the genealogy of my maternal family. I had no further connections with the Liu household. However, news about Liu Qingqing still kept reaching my ears. For instance, after Huang Fuju lost his position as the crown prince, the soldiers escorting him indeed treated him with mockery and abuse to curry favor with the new emperor. He was no prisoner, but a mere laborer. During the day, he had to massage the shoulders and pound the backs of the officers, serving tea and pouring water. Oh, I'm honored to have the crown prince pour water for me. He's no crown prince, living worse than the yellow dog at my house. I used to be a guard in your eastern palace, and you beat me just because I glanced at your concubine. Didn't expect this, did you? You've fallen into my hands now. I want to see how many days our esteemed crown prince can last under my control. What's even more baffling is that Huang Fuju had many concubines in his residence. With so many people, it was hard to manage, so his methods in the past were rather cruel. Among the soldiers escorting him this time, several had grudges against him. I heard our esteemed crown prince was pinned down by several men and played with all night long. Perhaps from that day on, he could no longer be considered a complete man. He had developed a shadow over certain matters. Naturally, Liu Qingqing went more than 10 days without receiving his favor even once. I spoke prophetically, and she indeed had an affair. When Huang Fuju discovered her playing a game with several soldiers, shouting, "You're so much better than that spineless wretch, the deposed crown prince," he nearly choked on his own blood. However, by then, he no longer had the right to be angry, and was even tied to a table by those soldiers, forced to witness the entire incident. Afterward, the soldiers left triumphantly, his crimson eyes fixed on Liu Qingqing as he charged toward the bed and bit off her ear in one savage motion. Liu Qingqing, who had been savoring the moment, let out a piercing scream and tried to flee. Huang Fuju grabbed her hair and tore at her face. "You shameless wretch! How can you want every man you see? No wonder your mother was a prostitute. None of you in this family are clean. You whore, I'm going to kill you today." Liu Qingqing's hair was torn out in a large patch, blood flowing incessantly, and her face was covered in scratches. Unable to bear it any longer, she kicked Huang Fuju in the groin. "Yes, what if my mother was a courtesan? What if I want every man? What difference is there between us? Aren't you now just their plaything too?" The last shred of dignity for Huang Fuju was completely torn away. He lost all reason, pinning Liu Qingqing beneath him, and began pounding her with his fists. She cursed, screamed, and then begged for mercy, until she fell silent. The face beneath his fists was reduced to a pulp. Liu Qingqing, unrecognizable, was left to rot in the wilderness. As for Huang Fuju, he committed murder while still in the process of exile, which naturally added to his crimes. Upon learning of this, the emperor had him brought back. He had long since lost any ability to think rationally. Standing in the Golden Hall, he cursed the emperor loudly. "I am the crown prince, you are a usurper, and your reign will never be legitimate. One day, I will make a comeback and kill every single one of you." The emperor was furious and ordered him to be turned into a human jar. Fortunately, although the emperor was ruthless during his rise to power, after securing the throne, he implemented benevolent policies to soothe the trembling hearts of the ministers. He also exempted the people from taxes for 3 years. On that day at the palace banquet, I had drunk a bit too much and followed a few princesses and ladies to the imperial garden. In a dark alley, I saw Huang Fuju confined in a jar. His head was shaved clean, leaving only a bare scalp on top. His mouth was slightly open, the wounds inside not yet scabbed over, and blood was trickling out. He seemed very uncomfortable, yet could only twist slightly. I turned and left. The past is over, and I will have a peaceful and stable future. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I am the illegitimate daughter of the family, raised under the care of my legitimate elder sister since childhood. In our previous life, my sister married the regent, who was incapable of performing his marital duties. She wept every day, eventually dying of depression. I married the top scholar, who came from a poor background. He despised me for being uncouth, and I cursed him for being pedantic. Our life was chaotic and full of strife. In this life, both my sister and I have been reborn. My sister said, "Shall we swap?" I agreed without hesitation. Yes. When the imperial decree of marriage came down, my sister sighed in despair, and I knew she had been reborn as well. In our previous life, she had joyfully entered the bridal sedan and became the noble and esteemed regent's consort. Yet later, she grew despondent and passed away before she even turned 30. Curious, I asked, was the regent not good? Good. What's so good about him? My Sister spat out in disdain. He's nothing but a silver spearhead that looks impressive but is useless in practice. As she spoke, she picked up her handkerchief and began to cry again. What does his inability have to do with us? I tried to comfort her. My sister blushed deeply, saying that since I had never been married, I simply didn't understand. How could I not understand? In my previous life, I had been married too, to show his appreciation for talent. My father, relying on his status as the Prime Minister, forced me, his illegitimate daughter, to marry the top scholar of the court, Zhong Rang. Although Zhong Rang was handsome, he was arrogant and stubborn, and he didn't fare well in the official circles. My father looked down on me, his illegitimate daughter, and couldn't be bothered to help him. Zhong Rang and I were incompatible in temperament, constantly at odds with each other. As a poor couple, we faced endless sorrows, and our life was nothing but chaos. Later, he simply took a concubine, who bore him 2 children in 3 years, deliberately flaunting it in my face. The past is too painful to look back on. My sister grabbed my hand, her eyes earnest. We cannot defy the imperial decree. Since you dislike Zhong Rang, why don't I marry him? And you take my place as the regent's consort. What do you say? My sister has a gentle nature. If she were to marry the regent again as in her previous life, I fear she would not escape the fate of weeping every day and dying of depression. How could I stand by and watch her throw herself into the fire again? I agreed at once. All right. My birth mother came from a humble background and passed away when I was young. My father's mind was entirely occupied with his official career, and my stepmother disliked me, ordering me to stay out of her sight. Only my sister was kind to me. She would give me her old clothes, plead for me when I was punished to kneel, and scold the servants who looked down on me when I was bullied. But more often than not, my sister was too busy to pay attention to me. She had to study the zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, and etiquette, striving to become the model of a well-bred lady early on. For me, as long as I had food to eat, clothes to wear, and wasn't bullied, I was content. Whether a man loved me or was willing to touch me, I couldn't care less. And so, on the same day, my sister and I got married. Hidden beneath our bridal veils, we stepped into each other's bridal sedans. From then on, we exchanged names. I became Shen Shuyu, and she became Shen Wanxing. The moonlight was like silk, and the red candles burned brightly. The regent's residence was filled with joy. I was hungry, so I dug out some red dates, longans, and peanuts from under the quilt and began munching on them. By the time the regent entered, I had already hidden the leftover shells and was sitting properly on the wedding bed, poised and dignified. When the bridal veil was lifted, I gazed at the man before me with anticipation. His name was Jiyu Jingyan, the young emperor's uncle, who would provide me with food and shelter from now on. He had a face like jade, a tall and straight figure, and a hidden ailment. He couldn't be more perfect. The moment he saw me, Jiyu Jingyan looked shocked and blurted out, "It's you." I was taken aback. "Has your highness seen me before?" "No." A flicker of some unreadable emotion passed through Jiyu Jingyan's eyes, and he smiled faintly. That smile suddenly made me uneasy, as if I had been found out, but I was absolutely certain he had never seen my sister or me before. Jiyu Jingyan sat down beside me on the bed, his jade-white, slender hand slowly approaching, gently brushing against my cheek. It seemed as though he was about to touch me. I sat there stiffly, full of vigilance. Before the wedding, my sister and I had shared our experiences from our previous lives. She said Jiyu Jingyan was cold-hearted and unfeeling, taciturn, and had no interest in women. He even bluntly told my elder sister, "I am incapable of performing marital duties, so you need not waste any more effort on me." Thinking of this, I felt a bit more at ease. Men, after all, are unwilling to admit their shortcomings outright. They always have to put on a show first. In the end, pretending to have no interest in me would save face. I wanted to see just how far he could keep up the act. Jiyu Jingyan's fingertips slowly landed on my lips, then gently brushed across them. He stared at his finger, clicked his tongue twice, and laughed. My vision went dark. On his finger was a smear of my bright red lipstick and a thin, pink peanut skin. "Was it tasty?" he asked. I was utterly embarrassed. so I decided to throw caution to the wind, pulling back the covers to show him. If it weren't tasty, would I have eaten so much? Jiyu Jingyan stifled a laugh, his breath as fragrant as orchids by my ear, though his tone sounded utterly insincere. The fruits symbolize the wish for early childbirth. It seems the princess consort is already eager to bear me children. My gaze involuntarily drifted to a certain part of his body, my eyes filled with sympathy. He was still pretending. The next moment, however, he pushed me down onto the bed, his hard, powerful body pressed down, blocking out most of the light. The candlelight flickered, and everything in sight was a festive red. He untied my belt with a fierce motion, looking as though he was about to devour me completely. He was actually serious. Terrified, I screamed, "I am not feeling well, Your Highness, spare me." Only then did his mischievous hand pause. Jiyu Jingyan remained in his hovering position, leisurely gazing at me. "If the princess consort is unwell in the future, you must say so early." Yes, yes, yes. I would definitely be frequently unwell in the future. After Jiyu Jingyan left, I finally realized what had happened. He had deliberately forced me to beg for mercy so he could leave with a clear conscience. What a cunning man. I slept soundly and followed him into the palace the next day, where the young emperor politely addressed me as Imperial Aunt. It was at that moment I realized how impressive my status had become. Good days were ahead. The regent's residence was beautifully landscaped, with pavilions and towers complementing each other delightfully. After eating and drinking my fill, I picked flowers from the back garden and wove them into a wreath to wear on my head. I spun, leaped, admired myself, and hummed little tunes. When I grew tired, I soaked a large watermelon in the pond of the residence's back garden and lay down on a rocking chair in the shade to cool off. Xiaotsue, fanning me with a palm leaf fan, scolded me with frustration. "On your wedding night, the prince didn't even perform the ceremonial toast with you, and yet you still have the heart to play around." I shrugged, unconcerned, and said, "He's the one who didn't do his part, not me unwilling to serve. You can't blame me." Xiaotsue was my elder sister's maid and had never held much respect for me. During the marriage swap, my elder sister sent Xiaotsue to accompany me, fearing our parents would notice something amiss. To be honest, I was more worried about my elder sister now. Zhongrang wasn't a bad person, but he was plagued by the typical flaws of scholars. I remembered in my previous life, on my wedding night, I had waited too long in the bridal chamber and couldn't bear the hunger, so I searched under the covers for something to eat. Just as Zhongrang entered the room, he caught me cracking peanuts with my mouth wide open. His face immediately darkened, as if he had been insulted, but he suppressed his anger and spoke to me in a pedantic tone. "Second mission, today is our wedding day. The veil should be lifted by your husband. Why did you lift it yourself before I arrived? Have I done something wrong to displease you?" I reasoned with him as well. I was just hungry. "Don't overthink it. How about I cover it again, and you can lift it one more time?" Zhongrang was indignant. "Marriage is a serious matter. Not a single step of the etiquette can be wrong." Second mission, your careless and perfunctory attitude clearly shows you hold no regard for me. I was so furious I threw the peanut shells on the ground and snapped, "It's just a snack. You've already eaten your fill in the front courtyard, but I haven't had a bite all day. If I don't eat now, I'll have to starve until tomorrow morning. It's miserable, Mr. Zhong. I'm just having a few fruits. It's not like I've broken some heavenly law. Do you really have to make such a big deal out of it?" His face turned bright red, and his hand trembled as he pointed at me, disappointment in his voice. "I thought a girl from a noble family would be the most well-mannered, but you, he stammered on the word you for ages." I stuck out my tongue and made a face at him. He turned pale with rage, then turned and stormed off on the spot. From that day on, we never had a moment of peace. He would always nitpick every little thing I did, endlessly lecturing me about my faults. In the end, he smashed plates and bowls, and I tore up the poem he had just finished writing. Neither of us let the other have an easy time. Thankfully, in this lifetime, I've finally gotten rid of him. I checked the time and figured it was about right, so I fished out the watermelon that had been chilling in the water. With a Crisp crack, I split the big, round watermelon in half and scooped out the flesh with a spoon. Pure bliss. Want some? I offered the other half to Xiaotsue. Xiaotsue rolled her eyes and snorted. What's with the attitude? I'm the princess consort now. That position was clearly meant for the eldest miss. Tears welled up in Xiaotsue's eyes. I don't know what the young lady was thinking, giving up the perfectly good role of princess consort to swap with you and marry that poor scholar turned. Zhuang Yuan, holding my half of the watermelon, I said leisurely, you just don't get it. She's been the eldest miss all her life, raised in luxury without a care in the world, so she wants to pursue a passionate, dramatic love. What's that saying again? Oh, right, well-fed, well-bred, but with lust soon led. But I'm different. I can't even guarantee food and warmth. How could I have the energy to think about anything else? I married into this family just for a meal. I gestured for her to lean in closer so I could share a secret. Xiaotsue's eyes widened more and more. What? The Prince Regent is incapable. I jumped up immediately and covered her mouth. Why are you shouting so loud? You fool. Xiaotsue was struggling to breathe under my hand, her face turning pale. The Prince Regent's incapability is a good thing. It saves me from having to serve him in the future. Understand? I'm not sure if she took it in or not, but she was still flailing and squealing. This girl's mindset is just too weak. She can't handle even the smallest things. I shook my head helplessly and let her go. Then I turned around, only to find Jiyu Jingyan sitting in the rocking chair I had just vacated, munching on watermelon with great relish. The watermelon is quite good, he praised sincerely. So Xiaotsue's squealing earlier was because she had seen Jiyu Jingyan behind me. My legs instantly went weak, tripping over something. I lost my balance and stumbled forward uncontrollably. He reached out a long arm, wrapped it around my slender waist, and pulled me halfway into his lap. Jiyu Jingyan was dressed in a deep purple brocade robe, his long hair tied up with a jade crown, the very picture of nobility. Even from the angle of his jawline, his face was flawless, without a single imperfection. I didn't even dare to breathe loudly. I felt like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Xiaotsue, seeing the situation turn sour, had long since slipped away. Jiyu Jingyan wore a faint smile as he slowly scooped out a spoonful of the watermelon's heart and brought it to my lips. Open your mouth. Numbly, I opened my mouth and swallowed. Jiyu Jingyan pulled me a little closer into his embrace and asked with a smile, what was it you just said, princess consort, about where I am, lacking, terrified? I spoke against my true feelings. Your Highness, you are lacking in nothing. He seemed pleased and fed me another spoonful of watermelon. After I chewed a few times, he held his hand out to my lips. Trembling, I spat the watermelon seeds into his palm, then I watched as he elegantly wiped the moisture from his hand with a clean cloth. His fingers were long and beautiful. The way he wiped his hands reminded me of an executioner cleaning his blade before a kill. Pressing tightly against his chest, I could feel the rise and fall of his breathing, and the gradually deepening sound of his breath. I thought I was going to die. A long, long time passed, and he didn't speak. The surroundings were so quiet that only the cicadas chirping in the trees could be heard. But in the end, he just wiped the corner of my mouth with a handkerchief and said, "Don't forget, the day after tomorrow is your return home." These past 2 nights, Jiyu Jingyan still did not come to my room, but the course of events was already off. In my previous life, when my elder sister returned home after marriage, Jiyu Jingyan did not accompany her. I don't know what went wrong, but his attitude toward me was very strange. I also had no idea how much of my conversation with Xiaotsue he had overheard. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. When we returned to the Shun residence, my elder sister and Zhong Rang had already arrived first. Father and the legal wife clearly already knew about the marriage swap, but they couldn't make a scene on the spot. They could only suppress their anger, and their expressions were more dramatic than the last. My elder sister secretly winked at me and even gave me a grand salute. Greetings, elder sister. Taking advantage of the situation, I affectionately called her little sister. After a few days apart, my elder sister's complexion had improved even more. Her face was rosy, her eyes held a spring-like tenderness, and her demeanor carried the charm of a mature woman. I stole a glance at Zhongrang, my husband from my previous life. He was gazing at my elder sister with a smile in his eyes, his attention almost glued to her. It was a look I would never have seen in my past life. No matter what, a trace of sorrow flashed in my heart. I truly was inferior to my elder sister in every way. Men all preferred women like her, gentle, quiet, and elegant. I sighed and turned my head, only to realize that Jiyu Jingyan had been staring at me the whole time, his expression displeased, frightened. I didn't dare to look at Zhongrang again. Later, father had tea with his two sons-in-law, while my elder sister and I followed the legal wife to the inner hall, where we were severely scolded. My elder sister shielded me, taking all the blame upon herself. Wanxing knew nothing about it. It was all my arrangement. Anyway, what's done is done. My husband treats me very well, and I am happy with him. Although he comes from a humble background, he is well-read, principled, and free-spirited, a rare gentleman in this world. I was utterly baffled. The rigid and pedantic Zhongrang, how could he be so wonderful in her eyes? The legal wife was so angry her face turned green. She had wanted to vent her anger on me, but since I was now the princess consort of the regent, she had no choice but to swallow her rage. After lunch, I eagerly ran to the pavilion to find my elder sister, but as soon as I reached under the wisteria trellis, that scoundrel Zhongrang beat me to it. The moment my elder sister saw him, her eyes lit up. She nestled into his arms like a little bird and asked in a sweet voice, "Husband, you met my elder sister today. What do you think of her?" Zhongrang sneered coldly and said disdainfully, "The princess consort is your elder sister, so I shouldn't speak out of turn, but since you asked, I can only say this in private. Go on. Although she is the legitimate daughter, she lacks the demeanor of a noble lady. Her words and actions are crude, and her manners are lacking. Compared to you, who is cultured and refined, she is worlds apart. Thankfully, I married you. If I had married her, it would have been the worst luck in 8 lifetimes." I clenched my fists in anger, and the urge to argue with him stirred in me once again. My elder sister covered his mouth and scolded him playfully. "My sister and I are very close. From now on, you are not allowed to speak ill of her. All right, but in my heart, there will always be only you, my lady. You need not be jealous of anyone." The two of them exchanged a smile, their eyes filled with deep affection. It was clear they were truly in love. At first, they were just hugging, but as their passion grew, they couldn't restrain themselves, and unknowingly began to kiss. My elder sister stood on her tiptoes, her head tilted back as she wrapped her arms around Zhongrang's neck, her pretty face slightly flushed, eyes closed in enjoyment. Zhongrang's hands rested on her slender waist, his eyelashes fluttering, his breathing heavy. I didn't dare to watch any longer and quickly turned around, but I bumped into a hard chest, almost making me scream. Jiyu Jingyan always appeared out of nowhere. I frowned, looking at him with disdain. Look, what are you looking at? Haven't you heard it's impolite to stare at scenes like that?" Jiyu Jingyan only glanced back once before his gaze returned to me. "Jealous?" he asked in a low voice. Before I could even understand what he meant, he had already dragged me angrily far away to a place where we wouldn't disturb others. The summer heat was stifling, the faint scent of lotus filled the air, and cicadas dozed in the trees. My wrist ached from his grip, and I shook him off. "What are you doing? You saw that couple being all lovey-dovey, deeply devoted to each other." He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Are you envious? Jealous? Eating vinegar?" From the moment we entered the front hall, your eyes haven't left Zhongrang. Just now you were sneaking peeks at the pavilion. Can you really not let him go? I smiled bitterly. How could that be? But Jiyu Jingyan wore a serious expression, emanating an imposing aura even without anger. "Shen Wanxing, look into my eyes and answer this, prince." "I really don't." I tried hard to explain. I just wanted to share some sisterly secrets. But then Zhongrang suddenly showed up. Watching Jiyu Jingyan's gradually narrowing eyes, I realized my mistake. He was tricking me. My name is Shen Wanxing, but when he called out my real name, I hadn't reacted at all. I was exposed. My heart skipped a beat, and I wished I could slap myself hard across the face. "Your Highness, it's a long story. It's all my fault." My legs went weak, and I was nearly in tears. I couldn't very well explain to him that both my elder sister and I had been reborn, and that she despised him for being impotent, wanting to marry someone capable in this lifetime. I could only say, I was greedy for wealth to cling to the regent prince. I deceived my elder sister, telling her how wonderful Zhong Rang was, and tricked her into marrying him. Jiyu Jingyan let out an "oh," his eyebrow slightly raised, pressing relentlessly. Then tell me, how exactly is Zhong Rang so wonderful? I truly couldn't keep making things up, and with a thud, I knelt. Your Highness, spare me. They all say the regent prince is a young talent, merely 20 years old this year, yet he holds great power in his hands, and no one in the court dares to defy him. Beneath his elegant and noble appearance lies a ruthless heart capable of decisive action. I knew I couldn't escape. How does your Highness plan to deal with me? Punishing you alone isn't enough. With one hand behind his back, the other idly twirling the jade ring on his index finger, he paced back and forth in front of me, defying the imperial decree, deceiving the monarch, and fooling this prince. The entire Shen household cannot escape responsibility. My face turned pale, my body wavered unsteadily, but I mustered my courage to speak. You can deal with the others as you wish, but could your Highness spare my sister? Jiyu Jingyan crouched down, his eyes level with mine, so protective of Shen Shuyu. Since we were young, sister has been the only one who was good to me. Has this prince not been good to you? After becoming the regent princess consort, my belly was always full. I wore silk brocades, my hair was adorned with golden hairpins and when I went out, I had fragrant carriages and ornate canopies, wealth beyond imagination. Although this good fortune lasted only 3 short days, I could die without regrets. I nodded vigorously, acknowledging that brief happy life. Your Highness has been very good to me. It's my fault. I shouldn't have deceived you. Jiyu Jingyan straightened up, his cold, stern expression melting away like an iceberg, his brows relaxing, adding a touch of captivating beauty. For a moment, I forgot to look away. Why are you still kneeling? He sighed softly, ruffled my hair. Come home with me, you poor thing. By the time I processed it, he had already walked several steps away. I followed closely behind, doubting my ears, and asked him in disbelief, Your Highness already knows the truth, and you're still willing to let me go back? Otherwise, he said irritably. I glanced toward the pavilion. Amidst the sheltering flowers and trees, I could vaguely make out 2 figures clinging closely together. I lowered my head, picking at my nails, and muttered quietly, Right, my sister probably can't go back with you anymore. Before leaving, my elder sister, with tears in her eyes, said, I hope father and mother take good care of yourselves. Please don't worry about me. I will come back often to visit. Stepmother was deeply moved. And father looked at me, signaling that I should say a few words as well. I'm not good with sweet words, so I simply said, Same here. Father and stepmother accompanied us all the way from the main hall to the gate. Compared to the distance between Jiyu Jingyan and me, the 2 behind us seemed much more intimate. Zhong Rang held my sister's hand, calling her Wanxing over and over. Wanxing, if you ever miss home, I'll accompany you back anytime. Wanxing, what would you like to eat tonight? I'll cook for you myself. Listening to this made my skin crawl. Jiyu Jingyan cleared his throat, suddenly stopped, and said to my sister with a gentle expression, I think the name Wanxing suits my princess consort better. Why don't you 2 sisters exchange names? My sister was taken aback for a moment, then suddenly understood and nodded approvingly at me. Father and stepmother exchanged a knowing glance, secretly relieved. The regent's words implied that he already knew the truth and would not pursue the matter further, but Zhong Rang disagreed. Why should we? He stepped forward to argue with Jiyu Jingyan. My Wanxing may be born of a concubine, but to me, she is a unique treasure in this world. Though my official rank is not high, I will never allow anyone to bully her, even if you are the regent. Second only to the emperor, you cannot casually strip my wife of her maiden name. He raised his head high, glaring at Jiyu Jingyan with gritted teeth. Jiyu Jingyan took a deep breath, looked at him coldly, and seemed at a loss for words. That's just how Zhong Rang is. Once his temper flares, he's as stubborn as a mule, and no one can hold him back. In my past life, I advised him to change this bad habit, but he not only took my goodwill for ill intent, his temper grew worse. And he ended up offending people everywhere in official circles. My sister came over and tugged at Zhongrang's sleeve. "Husband, don't get worked up. I'll explain everything to you when we get home." I thought my sister would inevitably face a scolding and was ready to stand up for her. To my surprise, the usually relentless Zhongrang instantly softened upon hearing her words. He took her hand and said gently, "All right, I'll listen to you, my dear." I was utterly dumbfounded. The carriage swayed gently as Jiyu Jingyan leaned against the soft cushion behind him, resting with his eyes closed. I sat obediently to one side, not daring to make a sound. My sister had deliberately returned to the Shun residence earlier than me to prepare our parents mentally. They had acted cautiously, having already given orders to everyone not to reveal any clues. The only possibility was that Jiyu Jingyan had overheard my conversation with Xiaotsue that day. Did that mean he also heard me say he had a hidden ailment? Shun Wanxing, what are you thinking about? Jiyu Jingyan suddenly spoke, startled. I quickly laughed it off. I was just thinking that Zhongrang probably knows by now that the one he married is actually my elder sister, Shun Shuyu, and not me. Hehe. Jiyu Jingyan leaned forward, frowning. Are you still hung up on him? No, no, no. I waved my hands repeatedly. He cherishes my sister and is willing to stand up for her, even at the risk of offending you, Your Highness. I'm happy that my sister has found a good match. Jiyu Jingyan's frown deepened. Are you saying that I am inferior to Zhongrang, that marrying me has wronged you? I continued waving my hands and said softly, I agreed to switch with my sister precisely because I wanted to marry you, Your Highness. His expression softened slightly, and he patted the spot beside him, signaling for me to sit closer. After a long while, he spoke in a cool, detached tone. From now on, you will openly serve as the regent's princess consort and manage the household affairs. Do not entertain thoughts of anyone else. He was acknowledging me, I suppose. Given his condition, he doesn't have high expectations for his consort, only that she remains loyal to him, beaming with joy. I agreed, Your Highness. Rest assured, from now on, my heart belongs only to you. The regent's residence will be my only home. Jiyu Jingyan gave a light cough, turned his head away, his face slightly flushed. In my previous life, Zhongrang never let me handle household affairs. He despised my carelessness, my lack of training in reading account books, fearing I would make mistakes in his records, preferring to do everything himself, staying up late into the night with a candle, clicking away on the abacus. During ancestral worship festivals, he would confess before the ancestral tablets of the Zhong family. To marry an unworthy wife is my fault. On the surface, it was self-reflection, but in reality, he was criticizing me. But in this life, Jiyu Jingyan actually entrusted the vast estate of the regent's residence to my hands, instructing the steward to teach me every detail, no matter how small. Filled with ambition, I vowed not to betray his trust. That night, after the second watch, I was so tired that I kept nodding off and accidentally fell asleep. I only woke when I felt myself being lifted lightly. Jiyu Jingyan had picked me up. He removed the account books from my lap and said gently, Why are you pushing yourself so hard? You can continue learning tomorrow. For now, go to sleep. My eyelids drooping, I mumbled, Whatever my elder sister knows, I must learn too. I can't let you feel that marrying me was a loss. Indeed, you must not treat this prince unfairly, Jiyu Jingyan replied. He placed me on the inner side of the bed, pulled the quilt over me, then took off his own shoes and socks. Naturally lying down on the outer side, he pulled another quilt over himself and closed his eyes. I jolted awake instantly. Was Jiyu Jingyan really lying beside me? Was he planning to sleep like this? Your Highness, Your Highness, I called out several times and even pushed him twice, but he showed no reaction. He had fallen asleep incredibly fast, unaccustomed to having a man suddenly beside me on the pillow. I couldn't sleep for the first half of the night. I finally dozed off in the latter half. I had convinced myself, first, Jiyu Jingyan was my husband in name, and if he never shared a room with me, rumors would inevitably spread in the residence, hurting his pride. Second, since he wasn't a real man and couldn't do anything to me, I might as well treat it like sleeping with a close sister. From then on, Jiyu Jingyan lay beside me every night. He was a restless sleeper. Sometimes, with a slight turn, he would accidentally pull me into his embrace, and I couldn't break free no matter how hard I tried. Looking at his face up close, his sword-like eyebrows were as dark as ink, his nose bridged tall and straight. In his sleep, he was much more docile than during the day. I stared, mesmerized, only realizing after a long while that our faces were too close, our breaths clearly audible to each other. In my previous life, my elder sister had married him. She had wanted a harmonious marriage, to bear children and enjoy family happiness, so she took the initiative to show him kindness, but Jiyu Jingyan remained indifferent, never sharing a room with her. Unable to bear it, she confronted him directly, and only then did he reluctantly explain the reason. My body has an ailment, I am incapable of performing marital duties. If you are unwilling, this prince can write a letter of separation. You may remarry as you wish. My elder sister initially agreed. But our father said, the Prime Minister's residence does not keep discarded women. If you separate, you might as well dash your head and die, lest you tarnish the reputation of the Prime Minister's residence. Rather than saying my elder sister died of melancholy due to Jiyu Jingyan's neglect, it would be more accurate to say her fragile and sensitive nature left her with no way out. Pressured by our father, with nowhere else to go, she could only remain in the regent's residence. Even so, Jiyu Jingyan still accorded her the full dignity of a princess and never mistreated her in private. Now, thinking back, my heart aches for my elder sister, and it aches for Jiyu Jingyan too. Held in Jiyu Jingyan's embrace, I could feel the beating of his chest. His eyelashes were long, like crow feathers, covering his beautiful phoenix eyes. His breathing was even, he was already sound asleep. I hugged him back and whispered softly, having a physical imperfection is not your fault. In my heart, you are flawless. As long as you do not despise me, I am willing to stay with you for a lifetime. After saying this, I fell asleep. From then on, the way Jiyu Jingyan looked at me grew even more peculiar. My elder sister sent word that she was pregnant. In her previous life, her greatest regret was not having children. In this life, she had finally fulfilled her wish. Overjoyed, I couldn't wait to rush to the study and share the good news with Jiyu Jingyan. The words were on the tip of my tongue when I suddenly realized I couldn't mention this in front of him. Bringing it up would only make him sad. Jiyu Jingyan was leaning back in a pearwood chair, looking quite cheerful. When he saw me, he set his teacup aside and asked with a smile, "What's got you so happy?" I clasped my hands behind my back and sauntered over. "I've gone through all the account books in the mansion and sorted out all the records. From now on, I can manage the household for you without any trouble. Wanshing, you're truly clever." He opened his arms, his eyes sparkling. "Come here, I'll reward you." Since he had already held me many times before, I naturally sat on his lap and asked what kind of reward he had for me. He wrapped his arms around me and, without warning, leaned in and kissed my lips. My mind went completely blank, and I didn't know where to put my hands. I stared wide-eyed at his face, so close to mine. Jiyu Jingyan's eyes were closed, his eyelashes trembling slightly, his breath uneven. My heart was pounding wildly. I didn't think to push him away, but I had no idea how to respond, so I just held my breath. Then, I felt something pressing against the small of my back, thinking it was something like a jade pendant on him. Uncomfortable, I squirmed in his embrace and, acting on instinct, reached down and grabbed it, muttering, "What is this? It's poking me." His eyes flew open, his face flushed red. By the time I realized what was happening, he had frozen, and so had I. After a moment of staring at each other, I scrambled off his lap in a panic and fled without looking where I was going. A maid came in with tea and snacks and collided with me head-on. The plate of pastries shattered noisily on the floor. She knelt on the ground, repeatedly begging, "Your Highness, please forgive me." I didn't have the presence of mind to tell her to rise and ran all the way back to my room, my cheeks burning. Did my elder sister lie to me? It shouldn't be. Could I have been mistaken? But I was too embarrassed to ask about such a thing and couldn't face him for a while. Over the next few days, I deliberately avoided him, taking Xiao Kui out shopping during the day. Jiyu Jingyan had said the mansion wasn't short on money, But I still wanted to save for him, comparing prices and haggling over every purchase. Even though I didn't buy much, the carriage was always packed full. At night, I would burrow under the covers early. As soon as I heard Jiyu Jingyan's footsteps, I'd immediately close my eyes and pretend to be asleep. He had been quite busy lately, sometimes not returning until after midnight. One day, I drowsily heard the sound of him undressing and getting into bed, and I grew so tense I didn't know what to do, but he just lay down quietly and said, "It'll be chaotic outside tomorrow, don't go out shopping." All right. Jiyu Jingyan kissed my forehead but made no further moves. The next day, the Duke of Wei's residence was raided. The Duke of Wei was the current emperor's maternal uncle, the Empress Dowager's own brother, and his family had held high positions for 4 generations, wielding immense power. Our princely residence was just a street away from the Duke of Wei's estate, and I could faintly smell the scent of blood in the air, mingled with piercing, agonized screams. This was the infamous Duke of Wei case that shook the court. The Duke of Wei's crimes were too numerous to record, and his fate was well deserved. This had happened in my previous life as well, but what shocked me was that in my previous life, the Duke of Wei's residence had been raided 7 years later, and the one who had sent the Duke of Wei to prison was none other than Jiyu Jingyan. By that time, my elder sister had already passed away, and not long after the Duke of Wei's fall, Jiyu Jingyan had also died. I couldn't make sense of it. Why had the Duke of Wei case happened so much earlier? Since my elder sister and I were reborn, aside from our marriages, everything had followed the same trajectory as our previous lives. In this life, my elder sister's fate had changed, but what about Jiyu Jingyan's? Was there an inevitable connection between his death and the raid on the Duke of Wei's residence? Feeling troubled, I thought of going to talk to my sister, but she had been suffering from severe morning sickness lately and probably didn't have the energy. At the end of midsummer, the rain was frequent, washing away the traces of blood. Jiyu Jingyan had been staying in the palace for several days in a row. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, wind and rain raging. Tonight, he definitely wouldn't be coming back. After the second watch, there was movement outside the door. Jiyu Jingyan arrived in the heavy rain, with the housekeeper trotting behind him holding an umbrella. When he entered the room, the hem of his brocade robe was completely soaked, his forehead and sideburns were plastered to his face, and there was a faint stubble on his chin. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" he asked with concern in his eyes. "I never thought much about sleeping alone before, but with you not here, I suddenly feel unaccustomed to it." My words were blunt and straightforward. He was momentarily stunned, his deep eyes gradually igniting with a blazing heat, as if they could set the world on fire in the next moment. I didn't care anymore. I rushed over and hugged him tightly. Jiyu Jingyan carried the pleasant scent of agarwood, mixed with the smell of rain. His hot breath brushed above me. Not running away anymore, he hugged me back, buried his head in my shoulder, and chuckled softly. "Last time, you teased me and then ran off. You're so heartless," leaving me with no choice but to take cold showers. I pushed him away, feeling a bit aggrieved. "You're just as heartless. These past few days, you only sent a verbal message, making me worry and fear for you." I was afraid that his death in the previous life was related to the Duke of Wei's estate, worried that he might meet with disaster, and anxious that he might not escape his fate 7 years later. From love comes worry, from love comes fear. It was this very worry and fear that made me certain of my feelings for him. A turbulent undercurrent surged in his eyes as he kissed my lips with near fervor, holding me as we moved from the doorway to the bed. His stubble brushed against my chin, tickling slightly. I felt a bit nervous and hinted subtly, "My expectations aren't high, so don't push yourself too hard." He helped me remove my hairpins and took off my outer robe, laughing as he said, "I won't push myself." I blinked, wondering if he had been cured in this lifetime, but he just tucked me into the blankets, lay down beside me fully clothed, and said in a hoarse voice, "Little star, don't tempt me. I've been pulling all-nighters at the Ministry of Justice these past few days. I'm exhausted." I blinked again, wondering if he was still the same as before. Jiyu Jingyan seemed hurt by my gaze. He sat up abruptly and questioned me seriously, "What's that look in your eyes? Do you doubt your husband? Before I could answer, he had already lifted my blanket and slipped inside. What are you doing? I was startled. He took off the jade thumb ring from his finger and set it aside, his Adam's apple bobbing as he said in a deep voice, performing the rites of husband and wife. The gasp in my mouth was silenced by his kiss. His breathing grew heavy as he covered me with dense kisses. Moving downward, he used his teeth to undo my inner robe, peeling me open like a freshly shelled, tender lychee. The moonlight was like water, and the red candles wept wax. Tonight was just like our wedding night. The moonlight was equally beautiful. I drifted along with his rhythm in the sea of desire, at times like encountering a sudden storm, at times like a gentle drizzle. Jiyu Jingyan started off gentle but grew increasingly fierce. Sweat trickled down his chest to his abdominal muscles, finally dripping into a hidden place. Tears welled in the corners of my eyes as I pleaded, "You, be gentler." He nibbled on my earlobe and chuckled softly. "If you can't handle this now, what will you do in the future?" I felt like crying but had no tears. So this was what he meant by "I'm exhausted tonight." And this was what my elder sister meant by "the regent is incapable." They're all liars. The next day, I didn't get out of bed until the sun was high in the sky. Jiyu Jingyan had already gone to the palace but had instructed the kitchen beforehand to prepare that awful 10-ingredient tonic soup for me. My body ached terribly, but my mind grew increasingly clear, thinking about things I had overlooked all along. On our wedding night, Jiyu Jingyan had asked outright, "It's you." He had clearly known at that moment that I was Shen Wanqing. Even though he had never met me in this lifetime, in this life, the decline of the Duke of Wei's estate had been moved up by a full 7 years. The Duke of Wei was Jiyu Jingyan's greatest rival in his life. So this was advantageous for him, and in the previous life, he had only married my elder sister, taking no concubines or side consorts. As a normal man, if there were no underlying reasons, why would he have told my elder sister that he suffered from a hidden ailment? After he finished handling the case of the Duke of Wei's estate and finally had some leisure, we shared a small drink under the brilliant stars in front of the crabapple blossoms. Jiyu Jingyan clearly had ulterior motives, his hands wandering mischievously over me. "Don't be angry anymore. That night was my fault. I don't want to sleep in the study again." I pinched his chin and glared at him fiercely. "Jiyu Jingyan, you liar, you hid it so well." He even had the nerve to act aggrieved. "Clearly, it was you, my princess, who spread rumors behind my back that I'm in poor health, tarnishing my reputation." Then he nuzzled my cheek. "Besides, isn't the princess also hiding her true self?" "True enough," I snorted coldly. "Then let's both speak the truth." "All right, in my past life, I married Zhong Rang. In my past life, I missed you." We spoke at the same time, both laying our cards on the table. He had also been reborn, but what he said was a sweet nothing, while what I said was rather strange. His lips twitched slightly, but he still asked with anticipation, "In this life, why were you willing to choose me?" "First of all, I ruled out Zhong Rang, so I married you." He was left speechless. I also had questions for him. "You and my sister were husband and wife in your past life. In this life, do you still have lingering feelings for her?" "Utter nonsense, absurd." Jiyu Jingyan looked agitated, though a flicker of discomfort crossed his face. "In my past life, she and I were simply, I took a sip of tea. You are the regent, you have full authority over your own marriage. When the imperial decree for the marriage came down, you didn't refuse, which means you were still willing to marry my sister." Jiyu Jingyan looked at me quietly, then suddenly smiled, making my heart flutter once again. "So my little star is jealous." He wrapped his arm around my shoulder and spoke slowly. "I've never paid much attention to matters of the heart, nor have I ever understood what love truly is, so I never took the initiative in marriage matters. I thought that in this life, everyone must marry eventually. Since I hadn't met someone I liked, it didn't matter whom I married. Besides, I wronged Shen Shuyu in my past life. If I married her in this life, I could treat her well as a form of compensation. Who would have thought that when I lifted the bridal veil, it would be you?" As he recounted the scene, a glimmer of starlight shone in Jiyu Jingyan's eyes. I thought to myself, isn't this the wife of Zhong Rang, the newly appointed top scholar from the Hanlin Academy in my past life? How did she become my princess? I punched his chest, fuming. How dare you? You didn't expose me on the spot. At first, I suspected it was some treacherous scheme, but then I saw you sneaking peanuts to eat and thought, what kind of conspiracy could a little glutton possibly have? Later, I overheard you chatting privately with Xiaotsue and realized that you and Shen Shuyu had the audacity to secretly switch marriages. That's when I guessed both of you had been reborn. If Shen Shuyu is willing to choose someone else, that's fine, she is a good woman, but I only feel apologetic toward her, not love. I shook his arm, unable to hold back my question. What about me? How do you feel about me? Even though I already knew the answer, I still wanted to hear him say it himself. Perhaps it was the wine, or perhaps it was the atmosphere, but after a few cups, a faint blush colored Jiyu Jingyan's cheeks, under the moonlight. He looked irresistibly captivating, watching you bounce around the palace like a happy little rabbit, watching you carefreely eat and drink to your heart's content, watching you bite into a watermelon without a care, watching you scold Xiaotsue with your legs crossed. You're so adorable, and my mood lifts just watching you. His voice was filled with boundless affection and tenderness. Thank goodness it's you. Thank goodness for this twist of fate that made you my wife. You've had a difficult life since childhood. From now on, I will love and protect you, and I will never let you suffer again. Touched to the core, my heart ached sharply. I deliberately buried my face in his chest, afraid the tears welling in my eyes would fall. On our wedding night, when I secretly ate peanuts, Zhongrang had scolded me harshly, but Jiyu Jingyan thought I was simply innocent and guileless. I walk with a bouncing step and eat with hearty appetite, but Zhongrang would scold me for lacking the grace of a well-bred lady. I can't manage accounts, and Zhongrang would only despise my incompetence, while Jiyu Jingyan would confidently entrust the vast Regency Prince's mansion to my hands, instructing the steward to teach me every detail of household management. Zhongrang never once considered why I didn't understand etiquette, because only with full granaries does one learn rites and ceremonies. As a mere daughter of a concubine, merely surviving was already a great struggle. How could I have the energy to learn music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and all those elaborate rituals? The same behavior, in Zhongrang's eyes, was vulgar, but in Jiyu Jingyan's eyes, it was endearing. Jiyu Jingyan pities the person I was in the past and cherishes the person I am now. Meeting the right person, this is what it feels like. After satisfying my basic needs for food and shelter, he leads me into a love I've never experienced before, and into romantic dreams I never dared to hope for. Just as I was feeling moved, Jiyu Jingyan ruined the atmosphere with one sentence. He slapped me hard on the back from behind, frowning in deep thought. In our previous life, Shen Shuyu probably didn't have feelings for me. Right, she couldn't have been so heartbroken that in this life she deliberately found a Zhongrang who's inferior to me in every way. I couldn't bear to listen any longer, wiped my few tears on his clothes, looked up, and glared at him. Don't flatter yourself, Jiyu Jingyan. In our previous life, my sister only wanted your body at most. She wanted a child. Then what do you want from me? I want something to eat. All right, he replied with a laugh. I'll let you eat your fill. He picked me up horizontally, carrying me from the flower hall to the bedchamber, took off his jade thumb ring, and joined me in the clouds and rain. On his back shoulder, there were still the red marks I had scratched last time. Jiyu Jingyan comforted me with a kiss and put the jade thumb ring back on his hand. I thought it was over. He twirled the jade thumb ring on his index finger, a wicked smile playing on his lips, and pressed down on me again. Wearing it is quite nice too. He was truly wicked. From then on, I could never look directly at that jade thumb ring again. He found another way to bully me again. Afterward, he held me in his arms and asked softly, in our previous life, I only knew you married Zhongrang. I never paid attention to you. Were you happy? I let out a long hiss, unsure how to answer. Speaking of it brings tears. On our wedding night in the previous life, Zhongrang and I had a falling out. After that, we were either arguing or giving each other the silent treatment. Occasionally, there were a few days when we got along relatively peacefully, and Zhongrang would come to my room in the evening, his face slightly flushed. He first made a deep, formal bow, then said in a pedantic tone, "My lady, since our marriage, we have yet to consummate our union. Tonight, I wish to perform the rites of Dugong. Is that permissible?" He thought he was being polite. I found it stifling. Such matters should happen naturally when the mood is right. His asking so formally in advance left me at a loss. Was I supposed to answer? Permissible? It felt like following a set procedure, very strange. But I still saved face for him and didn't say no. I let out a soft "H." Zhong Rang said, displeased. "If my lady is unwilling, just say so directly. There's no need for this." He stormed off in anger once again. My mood soured because of it. Later, Zhong Rang seriously reasoned with me. "My lady, I am not forcing you, nor am I a licentious person by nature, but among the 3 unfilial acts, having no descendants is the greatest. If we cannot leave behind offspring, I will have no face to meet our ancestors in the underworld. You are a woman, how can you not know that bearing children is your duty?" Hearing this, I grew even more annoyed. "I don't know, your Confucius, Mencius, and Laozi didn't tell me, and the sage books didn't write about how to have children either." I told him to get out, driving him away while arguing with him. Forget it, take a concubine, find someone willing to bear children for you, don't worry, I won't bully her. After she gives birth, I'll even help take care of her during her confinement. That's how things were in the past. Jiyu Jingyan saw my varied expressions and grew even more curious, raising an eyebrow. "Not harmonious." "No," I admitted frankly. "We never had that kind of relationship." He couldn't believe it. I described the chaotic past we had. After hearing it, he laughed so hard he pounded the bed. "Ha ha ha ha, we never even kissed." I added, "If a distant couple shares a kiss, nightmares will haunt them for nights." Jiyu Jingyan laughed even more joyfully, nearly choking. I had never seen him so delighted. I changed the subject. "But what exactly happened to you in your previous life?" I was referring to his hidden ailment. A shadow flashed in Jiyu Jingyan's eyes, but it was quickly dispelled by the tenderness in his gaze as he looked at me. "I'm in a good mood today, let's not talk about this." He embraced me. "Don't ruin our good spirits." Before we knew it, autumn arrived, bringing with it the young emperor's 12th birthday. Jiyu Jingyan was the emperor's only direct maternal relative. The late emperor had personally entrusted him with assisting in state affairs and educating the young emperor on his deathbed. Both in the previous life and this one, Jiyu Jingyan had always been diligent and dedicated, pouring his heart and soul into his nephew the emperor. The young emperor appeared to trust and rely on him greatly. I sat with him at the head of the banquet table. My elder sister and Zhong Rang were also in attendance. The music platform was warm and lively, with strings and pipes playing. Although it was a celebration banquet, some senior ministers insisted on discussing state affairs. They said that although the Duke of Wei's estate was undeniably guilty, the Duke of Wei was after all the emperor's maternal uncle, and requested the regent prince consider leniency. In my view, Jiyu Jingyan's sentencing, according to the law, was entirely appropriate. The Duke of Wei's tragic end was due to his heavy crimes. If he knew the law, why did he break it? 7 years later in the previous life, at this very banquet, Zhong Rang had mustered the courage of a newborn calf unafraid of tigers and openly questioned the regent prince. The regent prince already holds the highest position among subjects. Now that you've dealt with the Duke of Wei, do you intend to monopolize power? I wanted to stop Zhong Rang. But why would he listen to me? As soon as the words were spoken, the entire hall fell silent. Zhong Rang was demoted to a minor official at Human Pass, and I suffered plenty along with him. In this current life, at this moment, the various ministers were chattering away. Jiyu Jingyan leaned back in his chair, appearing relaxed and casual, idly twisting the jade ring on his finger. What does Minister Zhong of the Hanlin Academy think about this matter? I glared at him fiercely. Wasn't he deliberately stirring up trouble? It didn't matter if he wanted to make things difficult for Zhong Rang, but my sister was pregnant. Did he want to abuse his power for personal revenge and demote him to Human Pass again? I looked over with concern. I saw Zhong Rang and my elder sister exchange a glance, then nod in mutual understanding. Zhong Rang stood up and said neither humbly nor arrogantly, "This humble official believes that the law should not be abandoned for personal reasons. the regent. Prince acted according to the law and handled matters fairly. There is nothing inappropriate about it. The heavy stone in my heart finally dropped. Compared to his previous life, Zhong Rang had actually made such great progress. I quietly leaned close to Jiyu Jingyan's ear. Do you think Zhong Rang might have been reborn too? Jiyu Jingyan took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Probably not. I thought it better to be cautious. There was no reason why three of us would be reborn, but Zhong Rang alone would not. When fireworks were set off outside, I found my opportunity. My elder sister had gone to speak with other ladies, and Zhong Rang was standing by the river alone, burning with curiosity. I said, Jiyu Jingyan, I'm going to test him. Everything I say next will be insincere, so don't get jealous. After speaking, I turned back and added, if I happen to run into my elder sister, to avoid misunderstandings, you'll need to testify for me. Jiyu Jingyan shook his head helplessly and quietly retreated to the bridge to keep watch for me. I walked over gracefully and called out to Zhong Rang in a drawn-out voice, brother-in-law. Zhong Rang was startled and bowed in greeting. Your humble servant pays respects to the regent princess. Why so formal? We're family after all, I said with sarcastic sweetness. Besides, if my sister and I hadn't deliberately switched wedding sedans back then, I should have been the one who married you. Zhong Rang was so frightened he nearly jumped, retreating 3 steps back in a row. His pupils dilated and face deathly pale. Your Highness, please do not make such jokes. Since the switch was made, it must be the will of heaven. Heaven has opened its eyes to allow such a fine woman as Shuyu to marry this humble Zhong, meaning I was not good enough. I pouted, my face full of melancholy. Perhaps in our previous lives, the two of us were husband and wife. Impossible. Zhong Rang was furious and lectured me sternly. For the two of us, an unmarried man and woman, to stand here alone is already improper. For your sister's sake, I will not inform the prince of today's events. Henceforth, I ask that your Highness conduct yourself with more propriety. My eyes darted around. What does Lord Zhong think of the second daughter of Prefect Liu's household? I see she looks quite fertile. How about I find a matchmaker to introduce her to you, to be your concubine? The second daughter of Prefect Liu's household was the very concubine I had arranged for him in my previous life, the one who bore 2 children in 3 years. Nonsense. Zhong Rang was so angry he could barely breathe, clutching his chest as he said, I never imagined that 2 sisters from the same ministerial household could have such vastly different characters and temperaments. Shuyu did not disdain my humble origins and condescended to marry me. I can only strive with all my might to love her well and provide her with a better life. How could I take a concubine? That would be like having my conscience eaten by dogs. I begged the regent's consort to refrain from speaking such foolish words again. He flicked his sleeve and strode away, his steps swift. That Zhong Rang could remain devoted to my elder sister set my mind at ease. I returned to the bridge and was about to speak to Jiyu Jingyan when my elder sister approached. It had been months since we last met, and her belly was slightly rounded. I twitched the corner of my mouth. Had she happened to witness the earlier scene? Without waiting for me to explain, she smiled and said, My mischievous sister, I've already asked. My husband has no memories of his past life. How could everyone be like the two of us, blessed with the chance of rebirth? I chuckled proudly and pointed at Jiyu Jingyan. Mine here is reborn. Shun Shuyu was taken aback. Meeting one's spouse from a past life was, after all, somewhat awkward. Jiyu Jingyan was magnanimous, cupping his hands in salute. Sister-in-law, I hope you are well. In the previous life, due to many circumstances, I did not treat you well. My apologies. You did not treat me poorly either. Your Highness is too polite. My elder sister replied graciously, returning the salute. The two exchanged a smile, and the grievances of their past life were resolved. Zhong Rang suddenly appeared from nowhere, having overheard our conversation, his face full of confusion. What are you all talking about? Has something happened? What exactly is going on? Fireworks bloomed one after another in the sky. The three of us covered our mouths and laughed in unison. After the palace banquet, I did not want to take the carriage. Instead, I held hands with Jiyu Jingyan and strolled outside the palace. The night was beautiful, but the streets were too crowded. Jiyu Jingyan disliked so many people and wanted to be alone with me. Issue the order for a curfew. A short while later, the streets held only the two of us. He suddenly asked, "What do you think of my nephew, the Emperor?" I replied, "He is very respectful toward you, but being overly obedient is not necessarily a good thing. Now he fears and suspects. In the future, he will surely become wary. He is very afraid of me and has never believed that I would wholeheartedly assist him." Jiyu Jingyan spoke of his elder brother, the late emperor who had passed away. They had been deeply close since childhood, and on his deathbed, the late emperor had entrusted his orphaned son to him. He had thought it was trust, but in reality, precautions had been taken. In my previous life, by the time I discovered I was severely poisoned, it was already too late. My elder brother feared I would seize his son's throne, so he administered an incurable poison to me and allowed the power of Duke Wei to grow in order to deal with me. I kept my poisoning a secret, appearing to the outside world as if nothing was wrong. Even your sister did not know that my body was extremely weak, sustained daily only by medicinal soups. I struggled on desperately for 7 years, destroyed the Duke of Wei's estate, and dug up my elder brother's tomb. Only when I was on my deathbed did my nephew tell me that I would not be buried in the imperial mausoleum. My heart ached upon hearing this. So when he told my elder sister that he had a physical ailment, this is what he meant. So when he married my elder sister but never consummated the marriage, it was because he already knew his life would be short. Merely staying alive was already a tremendous struggle for him. Jiyu Jingyan grasped my hand, his palm warm. "It's all right now. In this life, I wasn't poisoned, and the Duke of Wei's estate has fallen. What about the Emperor?" He looked at me and smiled. "When he comes of age, he'll discover that he is impotent and cannot father children." Jiyu Jingyan grinned. "Thanks to the inspiration you gave me, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In this second chance at life, my elder sister and I merely secretly swapped husbands." Yet Jiyu Jingyan had quietly accomplished so much behind the scenes. Fortunately, everything has turned out for the better. In the future, if the emperor has no heirs, Jiyu Jingyan, being the emperor's only blood relative, I still need to bear a child. Thinking of the recent night's events, my legs felt a bit weak. Jiyu Jingyan, thinking I was tired from walking, asked considerately, "Shall we switch to a carriage?" "No need. Then shall I carry you on my back?" I cheerfully agreed, wrapping my arms around his neck from behind as he effortlessly lifted me up. The road was long. At its end stood the regent's residence, our home. The past life was like fleeting smoke. All the heartaches and sorrows had finally become bygones. The green mountains remained. The stars and moon shone brightly. The person before me was the one in my heart. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.